Usually it's a little warmer than it's been. They just had the Punxsutawney Phil up in Pennsylvania, 6 more weeks of winter. And I just want to let you know I'm working on an executive order to overrule Phil to reinstate the good weather, and I expect that to be effective probably about 1 week from now. We can get back to business. It's really great to be here. We've enjoyed coming down here over the years, and Joe was somebody that helped me when I was running for Congress. We'd be doing events and everything, and so I've kind of watched Southwest Florida grow a lot over the last 10, 15 years. And, you know, when I think about what we do in Florida, I think back about 100 years ago, President Calvin Coolidge made an observation that I think is pretty apt to what we see today. He said, "You cannot successfully administer the government by substituting the power of entertainment for the power of accomplishment." And we have so many of these politicians, these congressmen, they go on cable news, they blab, they'll do a press release, and nothing actually gets done. And so, you know, what I can do and stand here today, and I know I came here early in my tenure, I can say, you guys vote for a lot of different candidates on a lot of different things. For those who voted for me, I can say what I promised you I would do, I have delivered on those promises. And isn't that what you want elected officials to do? So think about K-12 education. We promised to do universal school choice. We've done universal school choice. Every parent can choose the school of his or her choice for their kids. We've promoted civics education in our schools, and we've enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights because we believe that ultimately parents have the right to direct the education and upbringing of their kids. You look at higher education, we have the #1 ranked public university system in the United States of America, and that's been true every year since I've been governor. But the one question I would always get when I was running is, you know, why are these colleges so liberal and political and everything? And I want you to know we've restored our universities to the classical mission of a university, which is the pursuit of truth. It's promoting merit. It's making sure that we're preparing our students to be citizens of this republic. And we've done that partially by offering support to the universities, financial support, whatever, but we've changed the underlying architecture. You know, in Florida, because of reforms we instituted, all tenured professors now must undergo review every 5 years and can be terminated for poor performance. We also have created a way to hotline in talented faculty from across the country who may not toe the ideological line that so many of the entrenched faculty do. So we've brought people in. So just look at the University of Florida, our Hamilton Center for Civic Leadership. We've brought people from Harvard, from Princeton, from Chicago, from Oxford. They don't go through the faculty. The faculty can't block them. They go to the Board of Trustees and they get appointed. So we've been able to create a mass of really high-powered intellectual giants that would have taken, under the old rules, it would have taken us 75 years to do it. We've done it in 2, and the best is yet to come. We promised that Florida would be a law and order state. And again, we've delivered on that. You didn't see BLM burning down cities in Florida in 2020. And the reason is people try to do that, go to jail in the state of Florida. There was a vignette on CNN where they actually found these, I think they may have even been illegals, but they were stealing in New York City. It was like a big theft ring. And they would steal, they'd sell it, they'd make all this money. Then they'd come down to Florida and party, basically, with the money. Then they go back to New York, steal, come back down. And the CNN person was like, okay, well, if you like partying in Florida so much, why don't you just steal down there? Why do you keep coming back to New York? And they're like, because they put you in jail in Florida when you do. That's why we don't do it. But we now have, and also Florida's led, I mean, I'm the only governor in America that has removed Soros-backed district attorneys from office. And these are very dangerous people because they will not enforce the law. So all the things we've done has now led to Florida having a 50-year low in the crime rate, and we're proud of that. You look at the promises on combating illegal immigration. My first year as governor, we banned sanctuary cities. A lot of people said, oh, you can't do that. The Hispanics won't vote for you. What ended up happening was I got the biggest share of vote for Hispanics in the history of the state of Florida, over 60% in my reelection. But we understood you had to uphold the rule of law. You had to protect communities. And so when President Trump was reelected, see the stuff in Minnesota, I saw that I understood what could happen. A year ago, more than a year ago, I called a special session of the legislature here in Florida. And a lot of people don't necessarily remember the details. I had opposition from the leadership in the Florida House. I ended up having to veto a bill. But the thing that I wanted more than anything was a requirement that all state and local law enforcement cooperate with the federal government for interior enforcement and immigration. The reason? Yes, some sheriffs would want to do it. But some won't. Some mayors would want to be like the Minneapolis mayor. And so we made it very clear, this is your responsibility. We're all going to be on the same team here. The voters have spoken. And if you don't do that, I have the authority under the law to remove you from office. Well, guess what? You have much better harmony in the state of Florida as a result of that. And so just in the last 9 months, our state and locals have helped with the apprehension and removal of almost 20,000 illegal aliens. And some of them have very serious criminal records, but that is how you do it in a way that's seamless and where people are working together. You look at fiscal responsibility and what we've done in Florida. Of course, we have no income tax, and that will not change as long as I have anything to say about it. I'm going to mention property tax in a second, but we've cut taxes every year. We eliminated the business rent tax. We've done all kinds of stuff. All these things now, these tax holidays are permanent, baby items, back to school, disaster preparedness, all that stuff. So, you know, if you're poor in Florida, your necessities aren't taxed at all with sales. Food, medication, baby items, all that stuff. And that's great. And we're one of the lowest tax states in the country. Our budget, our population is now 4 million more people than New York State. And yet New York State's budget is more than twice the size of the budget of the state of Florida. Where is that money going? Are they doing better roads than Florida? No. Better education? No. Better services? Of course not. In fact, New York City's budget, 8 million people, is bigger than the budget of the state of Florida with over 23 million people. And so our total spending at the state level is always ranked either the lowest or second lowest per capita in the entire United States of America. But we've done good things, and I'm going to talk about what we've done. Our state employees, you talk about the scope of government. We have the lowest percentage of state employees per capita of any state in the United States. Our state debt, you take all the, so I instituted an accelerated repayment program because I knew we could retire the debt, get them at a discount on the open market, retire the bonds, and I knew we could save on both principal and interest, and we have. So if you take all the debt that Florida accumulated over its 180-year history, just since I've been governor, we've retired more than 50% of it. We now have the lowest per capita debt in the country. Now, we talked about the great fiscal, but yet even with that, you know, very conservative footprint, we're doing big things. When I became governor, I said we are going to do Everglades restoration. It had been basically losing momentum. There wasn't much happening, and so we said we're going to lead on it, and we have. And we've put billions and billions of dollars towards Everglades restoration and water quality. You know, you now have the reservoir on the west side of Lake Okeechobee. So the Army Corps used to discharge dirty water into the Caloosahatchee, and it could end up coming here, create algae blooms, mix with red tide, create big problems for Southwest Florida. Well, now we have the reservoir. If they need to discharge water, they send it to the reservoir, you clean it, and then you put it back into circulation. So those days are over because of what we've done. We're also moving water south, massive water south through the Everglades all the way to Florida Bay. We see fishing improve, salinity levels improve, and because we've done so much on my watch, I was able to get the federal government to delegate us ability to do some of the federal projects because we can do them a hell of a lot quicker than they can. So, you know, they're doing the main reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee. We're doing the other federal components to that. And so we're able to get that done 5 years ahead of where it was previously scheduled. So as long as what we've done continues, I got in 2019. By 2029, we will have done what we needed to do the largest restoration in the history of the United States of America environmentally. And oh, by the way, yeah, it's good. Because we've had freezes in the southern part of Florida, that is actually an opportunity to relieve ourselves of some of these invasive species. We do know that the iguanas have been paralyzed. They're being collected. People don't have to turn them over to FWC. They can dispose of them, but I think you're going to see a major reduction in iguana population. They're pests, they're invasive, and they're not good for the overall environment, particularly the bird eggs. But then also the pythons. We don't know yet exactly what the mortality, if any, is there. They kind of burrow when it gets cold, so if it's just one night, they may be able to get through that. But this whole week seems like it's going to be cold, so you may end up seeing really significant mortality at the pythons. I have a program in there where people go in, hunt them, get them out, they make boots, and they make belts, and great. And that's help. We've increased a lot, but man, if like a bunch of them just die off in the cold, that would make it much easier for us. They're invasive, they're destructive to the ecosystem, and that would be very, very positive for us if that could happen. And the other thing that we've done was we've done more land and conservation than any administration in the history of Florida. In fact, we now have the Florida Wildlife Corridor, which spans from Southwest Florida all the way to the northern part of the state. You know, we're a growing state. There is need to have housing and things like that, but we don't want the state to be, you know, one big cement block, and we want to make sure that we're preserving those things that are really beautiful, and we are doing that. Election integrity. Remember, when I came in, we still had problems with elections in Florida. I came in, we got rid of the supervisors in Palm Beach and Broward County, and then we enacted the strongest election integrity measures in the country. No ballot harvesting, no Zuckerbucks, none of the things that have plagued these other states, and we even have a unit in state government that brings criminal prosecutions for voter fraud, which oftentimes would be overlooked, particularly at the local level in liberal jurisdictions. We promised we'd make Florida #1 for workforce education by the end of the decade. We're ahead of schedule on that. Look, I went to Yale University and Harvard Law School, so I'm not opposed to higher education, although I will tell you, running in a Republican primary, those degrees are scarlet letters. So when I was doing that, when I was running to Congress, you know, they're like, hey, this guy was in the Navy, served in Iraq, he's got a beautiful wife, he's young, he's energetic, he's conservative. Oh, but he went there, so I had to kind of overcome that hump. So, I mean, I'm a believer in higher education, you know, really elite education, and our universities are becoming more and more elite by the day. But a 4-year brick and ivy university is not the only way you can be successful. Vocational education, skills education, oftentimes provides people with great pathways, and we have high school students that are getting certified in some really important skills where they're going right into SpaceX and some of these major companies, and we've leaned in on that from the beginning, and we're going to continue to do that. We promised that we would stop Florida's reputation for being a legal and judicial hellhole. You know, when you drive around the state, you see all the billboard lawyers up there, right? It's like, call this, call that. Well, there's a reason for that, because we've had jurisprudence and laws that have incented more and more litigation. And so we finally did tort reform a couple years ago. It was a lot of fight, but we got it done. And now, what are you seeing? You're seeing auto insurance companies offering lower rates. You're seeing rebates. USAA just announced a 7% reduction. Home insurance, you just saw a reduction from Citizens Property Insurance. Peninsula just announced that. Any reduction and all that is going up nationwide dramatically and has been for many years. All that you're seeing with that, and it will continue, and if you have auto, search. shop, because there's opportunities right now waiting for you with these lower rates. The only reason any of that's happening is because we did the tort reform. We had 8% of claims for homes in the country, and we were 78% of litigation. So this is something that's made a big difference. And then finally, I promised that I would make sure we'd have a conservative Supreme Court, and I've delivered on that. Of the 7 justices on the court, 6 were appointed by me. So the results speak for themselves. We're #1 economy, #1 higher ed, #1 education freedom, #1 new business formations, #1 for talent development, #1 for religious liberty. The amount of income that has moved into Florida since I've been governor is more than has ever moved into an American state in the entire history of the United States of America. Even adjusted for inflation and all of that, people have voted with their feet. I'm not even asking people to come because we got a lot of people. It's hard to get a dinner reservation in Naples. It'd be a lot harder when I'm not governor anymore, too, I'll tell you that. So, you see that. So I'm not even asking people, but they are coming. And so couple issues going forward. We're going to have some good proposals about property taxes. The only thing I will say right now is when I became governor, local governments brought in $32 billion in property tax revenue. This year, it's going to be $60 billion. So don't tell me that you can't do property tax. In fact, if you just adjusted for population growth and inflation, that $32 billion would be about $44 billion. So we need to stand for taxpayers, and we're going to do that. And I've got different ways that I think we're going to be able to do something very, very meaningful. The other thing we're tackling is making sure we have a Bill of Rights for artificial intelligence, because, there's promise with this, but there's also great, great peril. And I believe technologies that enhance the human experience should be welcome, but I don't think we want to be subsidizing technologies that are purporting to supplant the human experience. We want technology to reinforce our values, not to destroy our values. We want to make sure children are protected from online predations. There's a whole host of things that we need to do, but the idea that somehow the best way to ensure that technology develops in a way that reinforces our values is to block states from doing any consumer protection and just hoping that Silicon Valley is going to have our best interests at heart. Let me tell you, those companies are out to make money. And I don't blame them. They're publicly traded by and large. They owe that to their shareholders. That's fine. But it's up for us to channel that into ways that are most productive. Let's capture the benefits of new technologies, but let's avoid these massive, massive pitfalls that we will rue the day if we don't do anything. So final thing I'll say before I take the questions is, the lessons that I would say, and I still got, more to do, but the way I've operated is I do a few things. One, north is north. You got to know where you're going. That doesn't change based on the news cycle. It doesn't change based on a poll or media or any of that. North is north. There's big things you want to get done. Every single day as a political leader, it's just meant to distract you from actually getting that done. So you can't get mired in that. You always got to focus on the big picture, and we've done that very, very well. Two, you need people around you that are going to carry that out. And how do you do that? And I tell people, it's like, look, I'm not looking for you to pledge loyalty to me personally. What I want to see is, do you have a pre-existing commitment to our shared philosophy about how you do it? And if you find people that already believe in that, then you can be very sure about how they're going to perform in office. If they don't really have that underlying commitment, then it gets a little more fickle. So we've had a lot of true believers who have really hoped to bring this about. The other thing is, I have not taken a poll since I've been governor. And, the reason is what's the poll going to tell me? I can't change my beliefs, right? Like Popeye said, I am what I am. And so, but a good leader, even if the polls aren't good on an issue, if you articulate what you want to do and you do it and deliver results, well, guess what? People will definitely come. That certainly happened with COVID. I mean, those early days of COVID, the media freaked everyone out. Even 75% of Republicans opposed what I was doing by having schools open, by having the businesses and all that stuff. And then as the weeks and months went on, people, he's right. And then the whole country ended up coming to here, including even lockdown politicians who were locking down their people and escaping to Florida. But had I followed the polls, we would have never been able to do what we did during COVID. The other thing is to be an effective leader, certainly in politics. You got to know the pressure points. You got to know the leverage points that you have. When I became governor, before I took office, I told the staff, give me a list of all the constitutional, statutory, and customary powers of the governor. I want to know how I can leverage things to be able to get all this stuff to land. I can't just say, I want this, and it gets done. I got to maneuver that through a constitutional system of checks and balances. We knew that. We always thought ahead about how you overcome that. And then the final thing is just, I sat there on the first day as governor. I looked around the empty office, and I was just like, listen, I don't know what SOB is going to succeed me, but they are not going to have a lot to do because I'm going to get all the meat off the bone that I can. You have a limited amount of time, and you got to get it done, and that's what we've done. Thank you.